I've been married to my wife Cassandra for 5 years, and for 4 of those years, I've had this uncomfortable feeling about her parents. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. They were always polite to my face, hosting dinners, inviting us on family vacations, and showering us with expensive gifts. But something always felt off, like when they'd accidentally schedule important family events when I had work commitments I couldn't miss, or how they'd constantly remind Cassandra of her ex-boyfriend Jeremy, who had such a bright future in finance and comes from such a good family. The first undeniable red flag happened during our 3rd anniversary. We were planning a weekend getaway when suddenly her mother was hospitalized with chest pains. We canceled our trip to rush to her side. The doctors found nothing wrong, and miraculously, she felt better the moment we announced we weren't going on our trip. 2 months ago, things escalated. Cassandra got a job opportunity in another state, a dream position she'd been working toward for years. It meant relocating, but we were both excited for this new chapter. The night we told her parents over dinner, her father offered her a position at his company with double the salary if she stayed. When she hesitated, her mother started crying about how she'd never see her grandchildren if we moved away. We don't even have kids yet. The job discussion turned into a huge argument with her parents bringing up every perceived flaw in our marriage. They mentioned how I couldn't provide the lifestyle their daughter deserved. Her father even said, "We always knew this marriage was a mistake." Cassandra was devastated but still determined to take the job. Then suddenly, the dream job offer was rescinded with no explanation. I found it suspicious, especially since her father had golf buddies who sat on the board of that company. Last week, I was using Cassandra's laptop when a Facebook message popped up from her mother. I know I shouldn't have looked, but the preview mentioned my name. What I saw made my blood run cold. Her mother had written, "Honey, I know you're upset about the job, but trust me, this is for the best. That position would have destroyed your marriage when you realized how much better you could do without him dragging you down. Your father and I only want what's best for you, and that's never been him. Remember how we helped with Jeremy's situation too? Sometimes parents have to step in. We've been patient for 5 years waiting for you to come to your senses." I felt sick reading it. There were years of messages like this, all undermining me, our marriage, and Cassandra's independence. They'd been actively working to break us up since day one. I closed the laptop and haven't said anything to Cassandra yet. Part of me wants to confront her with what I found, but another part worries this could be exactly what they want. To create a blow-up fight where I look like the bad guy for invading her privacy. She's been distant lately, making secret phone calls, and yesterday she mentioned having lunch with her parents to discuss something important. I couldn't sleep that night, just kept tossing and turning, wondering if my marriage was ending. I decided to take the day off work and clean the house to clear my head, maybe cook Cassandra's favorite dinner as a peace offering. While vacuuming under our bed, I found a folder tucked between the mattress and box spring. Inside were divorce papers, already filled out but not signed. I sat on the floor just staring at them, feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. I wanted to confront her immediately, but decided to wait until she came home. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, mechanically cleaning and cooking while rehearsing what to say. Cassandra came home late, looking tired and guilty. I had dinner waiting, but she said she'd already eaten with her parents. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I found the divorce papers," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. She froze, her face going pale. "You weren't supposed to find those yet. Were you going to blindside me? Just serve me papers out of nowhere after 5 years together?" She looked genuinely confused. "What? No, that's not— Wait, where did you find them?" "Under our bed. Not a great hiding place." She shook her head. "I didn't put them there. I've never even seen divorce papers." Now it was my turn to be confused. "Then why are they filled out with our information?" "I don't know. Can I see them?" I showed her the folder and watched her face as she looked through the documents. Her confusion turned to anger, then to a kind of horrified realization. "These aren't in my handwriting," she said softly. "This is my mother's handwriting." I took the papers back and looked closer. She was right. The feminine, looping script was nothing like Cassandra's neat print. "Why would your mother fill out divorce papers for us?" She sat down heavily at our kitchen table. "Because I told them yesterday I'm not leaving you. I told them I'm done letting them control my life, and if they can't respect my marriage, then I'm cutting them off." I sat across from her, processing this. "So the lunch today was them making one last attempt to convince me you're ruining my life. They brought up Jeremy again, said he's single now and interested in reconnecting. They even had a check ready as a new start fund if I left you." She reached for my hand. I told them to go to hell. Relief flooded through me, then confusion. "But you've been so distant lately. The secret phone calls." She looked ashamed. "I was talking to a therapist. And to Jeremy, actually." My heart sank. "You were? Not like that. I called him to find out what happened between us back then. He admitted my parents paid him to break up with me in college because they thought he was distracting me from my studies. They've been controlling my relationships my whole life." I thought about the Facebook messages. "Your mother mentioned helping with Jeremy's situation in a message I saw." Cassandra's eyes widened. "What message?" I admitted to seeing the Facebook notification. Instead of being angry, she asked me to show her. We went to her laptop and found the message thread with her mother. She read through years of manipulation and lies, her hands shaking with anger. "They've been doing this behind my back our entire marriage," she whispered. "Every time we had a problem, every job opportunity that mysteriously fell through, every argument that seemed to come out of nowhere." She scrolled further back and gasped. "Look at this one from right before our wedding." The message read, "We've spoken with Pastor Jim. He's ready to raise objections during the ceremony, as we discussed. Your father will pretend to have a medical emergency as backup. One way or another, we're stopping this wedding. You'll thank us later, sweetheart." I remembered our wedding day, how the power mysteriously went out at the church, delaying everything, and how her father had taken an ambulance to the hospital with heart problems that later turned out to be indigestion. The pastor who was supposed to marry us had a family emergency and was replaced at the last minute. "They tried to stop our wedding," I said in disbelief, "and they've been trying to end our marriage ever since." Cassandra closed the laptop. "I'm done with them. Completely done." That night, we stayed up talking, piecing together 5 years of sabotage, how they'd schedule mandatory family events when we had plans, how they'd show up unannounced when we were fighting to check on their daughter, how they'd purposely bring up topics that triggered arguments between us. "What about the dream job?" I asked. "Did they really get it canceled?" She nodded. "My father admitted it today. He called in a favor to have the offer rescinded. That's what pushed me over the edge with them." The next morning, we found the divorce papers Cassandra's mother had planted were missing. In their place on our doorstep was a letter. It was from Cassandra's father, a desperate plea justifying their actions. "We only wanted to protect you from making the same mistakes your mother and I made. We settled for each other and have regretted it ever since. We stay together for appearances, but we've been unhappy for decades." Cassandra crumpled the letter. "They're projecting their failed marriage onto us. We decided to move forward with the out-of-state job opportunity." Cassandra reached out to the company, explained the situation, and they were surprisingly understanding. The position was still open, and they were willing to interview her again, but her parents weren't done yet. The day before her interview, someone smashed her car windows. Nothing was stolen, just vandalized enough to prevent her from driving to the interview. When the police came, they found a note that said, "Reconsider your choices," tucked under the windshield wiper. We couldn't prove it was her parents, but we knew. We rented a car, and Cassandra made it to her interview. She got the job. The night before we were set to move, her parents showed up at our door. Cassandra's mother was crying, her father looking grim. "You can't leave," her mother said. "Everything we've done has been for your own good." Cassandra stood tall. "I'm 30 years old. I get to decide what's good for me. He'll never make you happy," her father insisted. "We've seen how he treats you." "You mean with respect and support? Unlike the two of you?" Her mother's tears dried instantly, her face hardening. "We've invested too much in you to watch you throw your life away on him." "Invested?" Cassandra laughed. "Is that what you call sabotaging every major decision I've made since I was 18? "We paid for your education," her father said coldly. "Your first car, the down payment on this house." I stepped forward. "Which we've been paying the mortgage on for 5 years. "We can take it all away," her mother hissed. "Everything we've given you." Cassandra didn't flinch. "Take it. I'd rather have nothing with him than everything with strings attached." Her father pulled out his phone. "One call and that job offer disappears, just like the last one." That's when I revealed I'd been recording the entire conversation. "Make that call," I said, "and this recording goes to the police, the media, and the company's board of directors. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your interference with their hiring practices." They left in a rage, threatening lawsuits and worse. We didn't care. The next morning, we loaded our belongings into a moving truck and drove away from the town they'd tried to trap us in. It's been 6 months in our new city. Cassandra loves her job, and I've found better opportunities here too. We're happier than we've ever been, free from the constant manipulation. Her parents still try to contact her occasionally. Emotional voicemails, extravagant gifts sent to our new address, even a few flying monkeys in the form of relatives calling to tell her she's breaking her mother's heart. She doesn't respond to any of it. Yesterday, Cassandra came home with news that made everything worth it. "I'm pregnant," she said, glowing with happiness, "and my parents will never meet our child." Some people might think that's harsh, cutting off grandparents from their grandchild. But after discovering the lengths they went to trying to destroy our marriage, planting divorce papers, canceling job opportunities, turning families against each other, we know we're making the right choice. They had their chance to be good parents to Cassandra. They failed. We won't give them the opportunity to do the same to our child. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if I hadn't found that Facebook message, if I hadn't discovered the divorce papers. We might have been manipulated right into separation, never knowing the real culprits behind our problems. But now we know, and knowledge is power. The power to recognize manipulation, to set boundaries, and to protect the family we're building from those who would try to tear it apart. If you're reading this and something feels off about your in-laws, trust your gut. Look for patterns. not isolated incidents. And remember that marriage is between two people, not two people and their parents. I realized my in-laws were deliberately sabotaging my marriage 5 years too late, but it's never too late to take back control. We did, and we've never been happier.
Successful people whose parents disowned them. What happened when they discovered your wealth? When I was 18, when my parents kicked me out for choosing art school over the family business. My dad owned 3 car dealerships, and I was supposed to take over someday. That's all he ever talked about. The day my acceptance letter to Parsons came, I showed it to them thinking they'd be proud. Instead, my dad ripped it up right in front of me. "No son of mine is wasting his life drawing pictures," he said, not even looking me in the eye. My mom just sat there, hands folded, silent like always. When I said I was going anyway, Dad threw my duffel bag at me and told me if I walked out that door, I wasn't welcome back. I had about $2,700 saved from summer jobs, which I thought would last forever. It didn't. First year was brutal. I lived in a closet-sized room with 2 other guys, worked nights at a 24-hour diner, and barely slept. Sometimes I'd call home just to hear my mom's voice, but she'd whisper that Dad was watching and hang up. After a while, I stopped trying. By my 3rd year, I'd started selling designs online. Nothing fancy, just logos and basic website stuff, but it let me eat something besides ramen, so that was a win. I graduated with honors, but there was nobody in the audience for me. I told myself I didn't care. 5 years after being disowned, my little side hustle had grown into a design agency with 15 employees and clients in 3 countries. I bought my first apartment in Brooklyn, had a nice car, designer clothes, all the things my dad would have measured success by. But he didn't know because I'd stopped existing to them years ago. Then last year, my younger sister Emma found me through Instagram. She was in college now, and had secretly kept tabs on me. We met for coffee, both of us nervous wrecks. She showed me pictures of our parents, both looking older than I remembered. "They saw your company featured in Business Insider," she said. "Dad went completely white when he realized it was you." Apparently, my agency had been profiled for our work with a major tech company. The article mentioned our revenue, 7 figures now, and had photos of me in our sleek Manhattan office. Dad had been carrying the magazine clipping in his wallet. Emma said they wanted to reconnect. 3 days later, I got a text from a number I'd deleted but still knew by heart. My father asked if we could meet. Just like that, after 7 years of silence. No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just wanted to catch up now that I was successful. I agreed to meet them at a restaurant near my office. When I walked in, my mom burst into tears. Dad stood up, hand extended like we were business associates. I didn't take it. "We're so proud of what you've accomplished," he said, as if he'd been cheering me on the whole time. Then came the real reason for the reunion. Their dealerships were struggling. Online car sales had crushed his business model, and they needed capital to modernize the family business. When I asked how much, the number made me laugh. $850,000. Almost exactly what my first year of art school had cost. The education they refused to support. "We're family," my dad said. Like that explained everything. Family helps family. I looked at him, at my mom who still wouldn't speak up, and realized I felt nothing. The pain was gone, but so was any connection. "I'm sorry," I said, standing up, "but you made it very clear I'm not family." My dad's face changed then, from friendly to familiar. That cold look I remembered from the night he threw me out. "You ungrateful little," he started, but I cut him off. "I built everything I have while you were pretending I didn't exist. The only reason you're sitting here is because I have something you want now." I left some cash for my untouched meal and walked out. My phone blew up with texts, first angry, then pleading. They even showed up at my office the next day, causing a scene until security removed them. What they didn't know was that I'd already set up a college fund for Emma. She shouldn't have to choose between family and dreams like I did. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Not about the money. They weren't entitled to that. But about closing the door, for good. Then I remember all the birthdays, holidays, and achievements they missed. Not because they couldn't be there, but because they chose not to be. Emma called me the night after I kicked our parents out of my office building. She was crying. Something I hadn't heard since we were kids. "Dad's furious," she said between sobs. "He's saying horrible things about you." I wasn't surprised. That was always his way. When he didn't get what he wanted, everyone else became the villain in his story. I asked Emma if she was okay, and there was a long pause. "They don't know I warned you they were coming," she finally admitted. "If they find out I've been talking to you all this time," I understood immediately. Emma was still financially dependent on them, living at home during college breaks. She couldn't risk being cut off like I was. The difference was, I'd had my acceptance letter and scholarship to art school already secured. Emma was still midway through her degree. "Don't worry," I told her. "As far as they know, I found you, not the other way around." The next morning, my assistant buzzed to say my mother was in the lobby. Just my mother, no dad. That was unusual enough that I agreed to see her. She looked smaller somehow, clutching her purse like it might shield her from whatever reaction I might have. "Your father doesn't know I'm here," she said, still standing even though I gestured to the chair opposite my desk. He wouldn't approve. 7 years. And she still couldn't make a move without his approval. Some things never change. "What do you want, Mom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She fumbled with her purse and pulled out a small box. "I saved this for you. I always believed you'd come back someday." Inside was my grandfather's watch. He'd been an artist too, a fact my father had conveniently omitted from family history. Grandpa had given me the watch when I was 16, telling me to follow my passion no matter what. When I was kicked out, I'd left it behind accidentally in the chaos. "Your father wanted to sell it," she said quietly, but I hid it. It was the first time I realized she might have been silently rebelling in her own way. Too late, too little, but still something. "Why didn't you ever call me back?" I asked. "All those times I reached out?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I was afraid. Not just of your father, but of hearing how much you were struggling. Knowing it was partly my fault for not standing up for you." She finally sat down, seemingly exhausted by this small act of defiance. "The money isn't just for the dealerships," she confessed. "Your father has made some bad investments. We're going to lose the house. He's too proud to admit it." I felt a flicker of pity, but quickly pushed it aside. How many nights had I slept on friends' couches or in the back room of the diner during my early years in New York? Where was their concern then? I built my business from nothing, I told her. Dad can do the same if he has to. She nodded, not arguing. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I kept something of yours all this time, and that I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. As she stood to leave, she added, Emma's been talking about transferring to a school in New York. Your father is against it, but I think she should be near her brother. 2 days later, I received formal paperwork from my father's lawyer requesting a family business investment. The proposed terms were laughable. I would get a 10% stake in a failing business for nearly $1 million. There was a handwritten note attached. Blood is thicker than water. Don't forget where you came from. I asked my own lawyer to respond with a simple message. I remember exactly where I came from. That's why my answer is no. What I didn't expect was the campaign that followed. My father started calling my clients, telling them stories about how I'd abandoned my family. He even contacted my employees, suggesting I was untrustworthy. Most people saw through it, but it was still damaging. The final straw came when he showed up at my apartment building drunk, yelling in the lobby that I was an ungrateful bastard. The doorman called the police, and I had to decide whether to press charges against my own father. I didn't, but I did get a restraining order. When the court papers were delivered, my mother called in tears. He's not a bad man, she insisted. He's just desperate and proud. Those aren't excuses, I told her. They're the reason I had to leave in the first place. 3 months passed with no contact. I threw myself into work, expanded the agency, and helped Emma quietly transfer to NYU. She moved into my guest room, temporarily, though we both knew it would likely be permanent. She was the only family I needed. Then one evening, my assistant forwarded an email from my father's dealership. It was a job posting for a new general manager. Below it was a message. The position is open because I'm retiring. Not asking for anything. Just thought you should know. I almost deleted it. But something made me call the dealership the next day. Not my father directly, but his longtime secretary, Marion, who had always slipped me candy when I visited as a kid. Oh, honey, she said when she realized who was calling. You haven't heard. My father had suffered a minor stroke 2 weeks earlier. He was recovering but had been advised to step back from the business. The dealerships were being sold to a national chain, the family home was on the market, and my parents were downsizing to a condo. He's too proud to call you, Marion said, but he keeps that magazine with your picture in his hospital room. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me thought it was just another manipulation tactic. Another part remembered the dad who taught me to ride a bike and cheered at my Little League games, before his dreams for me overshadowed who I actually was. I sent flowers to the hospital but didn't visit. Instead, I had my lawyer draw up papers for a trust fund to help with my parents' medical expenses. Not a gift to them directly, but a separate account they could access for healthcare only. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I couldn't just do nothing. A week later, Emma came home from visiting them with a letter. Handwritten, shaky, clearly done during my father's recovery. I was wrong, it began simply. Not just about your art, but about what makes a man successful. It took me losing everything to see that you built something real. Something better than I managed in twice the time. No request for money, no excuses. Just an acknowledgement I never thought I'd hear. I drove out to their new condo the following Sunday. It was small, nothing like the sprawling house I'd grown up in. My mother answered the door and froze in shock before pulling me into a desperate hug. My father was sitting in a recliner, looking frail but still imposing somehow. When he saw me, he struggled to stand. Don't, I said, I'm not staying long. We talked awkwardly about nothing important at first. The weather, Emma's classes, my recent trip to Japan for a client. Then finally, he cleared his throat. I've had a lot of time to think, he said, about what kind of legacy I'm leaving. Not the business. That's gone now. But what my children will remember about me. He looked me in the eye, really looked at me. Maybe for the first time since I was a teenager. I was raised believing a man's worth was in his work, in providing. Art wasn't work to me. I couldn't understand how my son could throw away a sure thing for something so risky. But you proved me wrong in every way possible. He gestured around the modest condo. I followed all the rules, did everything right, and ended up here. You followed your passion and built an empire. That magazine said your agency is worth 8 figures now. I nodded. We'd recently been valued for a potential merger at $12 million, though I had no intention of selling. I'm not here to ask for money, he continued. I wouldn't take it even if you offered. My pride's taken enough hits. I just wanted you to know I see you now. I see what you've accomplished. And I was wrong to stand in your way. It wasn't a tearful reconciliation. There was too much history for that. But it was a start. A crack in the wall we'd built between us. I stayed for dinner. My mother had made my favorite childhood meal, though I hadn't had it in years. We talked about Emma's future, about my company, even a little about my art, which my father still clearly didn't fully understand but was trying to appreciate. As I was leaving, he handed me a small, worn, leather-bound book. Your grandfather's sketchbook, he said. I should have given this to you years ago. Inside were drawings my grandfather had done. Landscapes, portraits, designs for furniture he'd built. Art that had been hidden away because it didn't fit with my father's narrative of our family. There's more of him in you than there is of me, my father said. Maybe that's not such a bad thing after all. I didn't forgive him that day. Real forgiveness would take time if it came at all. But I did start to understand him better. How his own father had pushed him into the car business. How fear of failure had driven his whole life. How seeing me succeed by breaking all his rules had shattered his worldview. Over the next year, we established a cautious relationship. Monthly dinners, occasional phone calls. My mother started volunteering at an art therapy program for kids. Her way of making amends, I suppose. My father joined a mentoring program for young entrepreneurs, telling them all the things he wished he'd known, including the importance of supporting their children's dreams, even when they didn't understand them. Emma graduated and came to work for my agency, bringing a business sense I sometimes lacked. She was the bridge between my creative world and our parents' practical one, translating between us when old tensions flared. The trust fund I'd established for their medical care went largely unused. My father insisted on Medicare and supplemental insurance, wanting to maintain what independence he could. Save it for when we're really old and difficult, he joked once. The first humor I'd heard from him in years. Last month, I opened our newest office in Chicago, not far from where I grew up. At the launch party, I spotted my parents in the crowd, my father leaning on a cane but standing straight, watching with something that looked like pride as I gave my speech. Afterward, he shook my hand formally, then pulled me into an unexpected hug. "You did good, son," he said gruffly. "You did better than good." It wasn't everything. It couldn't erase those 7 years of silence, the struggle, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering why I wasn't enough for them to love. But it was something, an acknowledgement that we all have the right to chart our own course, to define success on our own terms. Sometimes wealth isn't measured in dollars. Sometimes it's found in the freedom to be who you truly are, in creating something meaningful from nothing, in finding the strength to open a door you once swore would stay closed forever. My agency now has a scholarship program for art students whose families don't support their dreams. The first recipient? A talented kid from my hometown whose car dealer father thinks art is a waste of time. Each check is signed personally by my dad. People ask if I've forgiven my parents. The truth is more complicated. I've accepted that they did the best they could with the limited understanding they had. I've recognized that I might not be where I am today without that painful push out of the nest. And I've come to believe that family isn't just about blood or obligation. It's a choice we make every day, to show up, to try again, to see each other for who we really are. The greatest wealth I've found isn't in my bank account. It's in breaking the cycle, in creating space for everyone to follow their own path without fear of rejection. My father lost everything trying to hold on to control. I gained everything by letting it go. Today, we're not the family we once were. We're something different, something rebuilt from the ground up with stronger foundations and room for everyone to stand in their truth. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And maybe that's all any family can hope to be.